The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Sarah Chen placed her hands flat on the crystalline podium. Around her, representatives from 47 species shifted uncomfortably in their specialized seating arrangements. The Vrex delegation's tentacles writhed nervously, while the insectoid Kythera clicked their mandibles in what could only be described as anxiety. "You cannot be serious," Chancellor Vorthak of the hegemony hissed, his reptilian features contorting with disbelief. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council? After everything we have built together?" Sarah's expression remained perfectly calm, though those who knew humans well enough might have noticed the slight tightening around her eyes. "The decision has been made. Earth's colonies will be recalled, our trade agreements terminated, and our military forces withdrawn from all joint operations within the next standard cycle." The chamber erupted. Representatives leaped from their seats, appendages waving, voices raised in a cacophony of alien languages that the universal translators struggled to keep up with. The thermal lords' crystalline forms pulsed angry red, while the gaseous nebulons compressed themselves into tight, agitated clouds. "This is madness," roared General Thexka, the four-armed military commander of the coalition forces. "The void devourers threaten the outer rim. We need human military might now more than ever." Sarah waited for the chaos to subside, her patience a stark contrast to the alien panic surrounding her. When relative quiet returned, she spoke again, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber without the aid of amplification. "For 3 centuries, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have shared our technology, our resources, our very lives in defense of galactic peace. Human soldiers have bled on 1,000 battlefields for species they had never met, for causes that brought them no benefit. The Altarian High Priest, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, pulsed with what might have been shame. Your sacrifices are acknowledged, Ambassador Chen. But surely we can discuss terms like terms?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "When the plague struck the Vorthon homeworld, human medical teams worked without rest for 18 months to find a cure. When the crystalline emirates faced economic collapse, human economists and engineers rebuilt your entire infrastructure. When the savage tide swept through the beta sector, human marines died by the thousands to protect worlds that had never even seen a human before." She gestured to the ornate seat designated for Earth's representative, its modest design dwarfed by the elaborate thrones and platforms of other species. "And what is humanity's reward? We sit in the same chair we were given as probationary members 300 years ago. Our proposals are dismissed without discussion. Our warnings are ignored until catastrophe proves us right." Chancellor Vorthak slithered closer to the podium, his massive form casting a shadow over the human ambassador. "You speak of slights and perceived injustices, but consider the greater good. The galaxy needs human innovation, human determination." "The galaxy needs humans to shut up and follow orders," Sarah interrupted, her diplomatic facade finally cracking slightly. "That's what this council really thinks, isn't it? That we're useful attack dogs, good for solving problems too dangerous or distasteful for proper civilized species to handle themselves." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the perpetually chattering pixie delegation had gone quiet, their tiny forms huddled together in their specialized atmospheric sphere. Trade Minister Velox of the Commercial Union finally found her voice. "Ambassador Chen, perhaps we have been insensitive to human concerns. But consider the economic implications. The collapse of human-maintained supply chains alone would devastate 17 sectors. Then you should have thought of that before rejecting our proposal to establish human colonies in the frontier zone," Sarah replied coolly, "before dismissing our warnings about void devourer activity, before treating every human innovation as something to be carefully regulated and controlled." She activated a holographic display showing trade statistics, military deployment records, and technological advancement charts. The numbers painted a stark picture. Humanity contributed far more to galactic civilization than they received in return. The Terran Federation has grown tired of being taken for granted. Sarah continued. "We have our own expanding colonies beyond council space, our own trade networks with species who appreciate partnership over exploitation. We no longer need the Galactic Council. The question is, does the Council need us?" The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. Human FTL technology was the fastest in the galaxy. Human weapons were the most effective against void devourer bioships. Human adaptive capabilities meant they could survive and work in environments that would kill most other species. Human medicine had solved plagues and genetic disorders for dozens of civilizations. "This is blackmail," growled the Ursine Collective's representative, his bear-like features twisted with anger. "This is freedom," Sarah corrected. "For too long, humanity has constrained itself to fit into your vision of galactic order. We've held back our full potential, limited our expansion, restricted our research to avoid making others uncomfortable. That ends now." She touched a control on her wrist communicator. Throughout the galaxy, human ships began powering up their engines. Colony ships that had been waiting decades for council approval to establish new worlds suddenly received new coordinates in unexplored space. Research stations began sharing their most closely guarded discoveries with human allies, rather than the Council's technology review boards. "You speak of the Void Devourers," Sarah said, returning her attention to the stunned assembly. "Humanity has been fighting them for 50 years while the Council debated response strategies. We've developed countermeasures, weapons, tactics that could end the threat permanently, but every time we've offered to share them, you've demanded modifications, oversight committees, restrictions on deployment." The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed louder as the tension reached a breaking point. Representatives began urgent communications with their home governments, while others huddled in species-specific groups, whispering frantically. "How long do we have?" Chancellor Vorthak asked quietly, his political mind already calculating the ramifications. "Human vessels will begin departing Council space in 72 hours, Sarah replied. "Trade agreements terminate in 30 days. Military withdrawal will be complete within one standard cycle, as I mentioned. We're not abandoning anyone in immediate danger, but we won't be here to rescue you from future problems of your own making." As she prepared to leave the podium, Sarah paused and looked around the chamber one final time. "The galaxy is vast, and humanity has barely begun to explore our potential. Perhaps when the Council learns to treat us as equals rather than useful servants, we can discuss renewed cooperation. Until then, humanity chooses its own path." The sound of her footsteps echoed through the silent chamber as she walked toward the exit, leaving behind 3 centuries of galactic alliance and stepping into an uncertain but self-determined future. Captain Marcus Rodriguez watched the last of the civilian transports disappear into hyperspace, their quantum signatures fading like dying stars against the backdrop of the void. Around him, the bridge of the UES Determination hummed with quiet efficiency as his crew prepared for humanity's greatest exodus in centuries. "Final count, Commander Hayes," Marcus requested, settling back into his command chair. 2,347 vessels departed from this sector alone. "Sir," Hayes reported, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "That includes everything from private yachts to massive colony ships. The Admiralty estimates we're looking at over 50,000 human vessels leaving Council space within the next week." Marcus nodded grimly. The scale of the withdrawal was staggering. Humans had been scattered across the galaxy for 300 years, building lives and communities on hundreds of worlds. Now they were abandoning it all, pulling back beyond the boundaries of galactic civilization. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Altair colony," Lieutenant Chen announced from communications. "Governor Harrison reports that the local Zathari government is offering to double their mining contracts if humans stay." "Too little, too late," Marcus muttered. "What about the research stations?" Dr. Yamato confirmed that the xenobiology lab on Kepler 442b has been completely evacuated. They've taken their research with them, of course. The Aquatic Alliance is apparently offering unlimited funding to continue the coral reef restoration project. But our people are already en route to the frontier. Through the main view screen, Marcus could see the massive shapes of other human vessels forming up for the journey ahead, battleships that had protected alien worlds, exploration vessels that had mapped dangerous sectors, medical ships that had answered distress calls regardless of species, all of them now turning their backs on the galaxy they had served so faithfully. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their willingness to help others, to sacrifice for the greater good. But that same strength had made them easy to exploit, easy to take for granted. The Council had grown comfortable with human reliability, assuming it would always be there whenever needed. "Captain," Hayes said quietly, "I'm getting reports from across the withdrawal zone. Some colonies are facing riots as local populations try to prevent humans from leaving. The mining operation on Rigel 7 has been surrounded by Thorian protesters. Marcus felt a familiar weight in his chest. These weren't just statistics or political maneuvers. Every ship leaving represented families torn apart, relationships severed, communities destroyed. But sometimes walking away was the only way to make people understand what they were losing. "Any casualties?" he asked. "None so far, but tensions are rising. The local governments are requesting human security forces to maintain order during the evacuation. But our people are refusing. They say if the aliens want order, they can maintain it themselves." The bridge fell quiet except for the usual background hum of systems. Marcus had served in the Galactic peacekeeping forces for 25 years. He'd seen human soldiers die protecting worlds that couldn't even pronounce their names correctly. He'd watched human engineers work themselves to exhaustion rebuilding alien infrastructure. He'd seen human doctors risk their lives treating diseases that could kill them, but leave their alien patients unharmed. "Sir, Admiral Zhang is requesting a conference call with all fleet commanders," Chen reported. The Admiral's weathered face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from his flagship somewhere in the convoy. Behind him, Marcus could see the organized chaos of a military command center operating at peak efficiency. "Gentlemen, ladies," Zhang began without preamble, "I want status reports from all sectors. Rodriguez, how are things in your area?" "All civilian evacuations complete, Admiral. We're escorting the last industrial platforms out now. The local governments are making increasingly desperate offers to keep us here." "Good. Thompson, what about the Vega system?" Captain Thompson's voice crackled with static across the quantum link. "Similar situation here, sir. The Crystalline Emirates are offering to reclassify all human settlements as autonomous territories. Full self-governance, no council oversight. The works. After 3 centuries, they suddenly discover the concept of autonomy," Admiral Zhang said dryly. "What about our deep space facilities?" "The Magellan Observatory has been stripped and abandoned," reported Captain Silva. "The data we've collected over the past century is being transferred to mobile research vessels. The local gaseous collective is offering to fund the construction of an even larger facility if we stay." Marcus shook his head. It was the same story everywhere. Offers that would have been considered generous months ago, concessions that humanity had requested for decades, suddenly appearing now that it was too late. The council members were finally realizing what they were losing. "Admiral," Marcus interjected, "what about the frontier colonies? Are they ready to receive this many refugees?" "The advanced scouts report that our independent colonies beyond council space have been preparing for months. New Terra alone has construction crews working around the clock to build temporary housing. And remember, gentlemen, these aren't refugees. These are colonists heading home." The distinction was important. Humanity wasn't fleeing in defeat. They were consolidating their strength. For the first time in centuries, human resources would be devoted exclusively to human interests. No more subsidizing alien economies while human worlds struggled with limited resources. No more sending the cream of human military talent to die for causes that brought humanity no benefit. "Sir," Hayes whispered, pointing to a smaller screen showing news feeds from across the galaxy. "You need to see this." The feeds showed scenes from hundreds of worlds. Panic in alien markets as the reality of humanity's withdrawal set in. Protests outside human embassies, emergency council sessions being called on dozens of worlds. The economic implications were becoming clear as supply chains that had operated smoothly for centuries suddenly faced massive disruptions. The hegemony's currency has lost 30% of its value in the past 6 hours, Hayes reported quietly. Their entire mineral extraction industry was dependent on human engineering support. Marcus watched alien news anchors struggling to explain the situation to their audiences. Many species had grown up in a galaxy where humans were simply part of the background, always there when needed, never making demands that couldn't be ignored. Now they were discovering what the galaxy looked like without human innovation, human protection, human selflessness. "Admiral," Captain Silva's voice cut through the chatter. "We're receiving a direct transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate emergency negotiations." Zhang's expression hardened. "Tell them we'll consider discussions after the withdrawal is complete. Humanity is done negotiating from a position of weakness." Marcus couldn't help but smile grimly. For 300 years, humans had sat at the children's table of galactic politics. grateful for whatever scraps of recognition they received. They'd been the reliable problem solvers, the expendable shock troops, the innovative engineers whose ideas could be safely stolen without consequence. Now the galaxy was about to learn what it meant to solve its own problems. All ships. This is Admiral Zhang. The command frequency crackled. Execute hyperspace jump in 30 minutes. Set course for the frontier territories. It's time to show the universe what humanity can accomplish when we're working for ourselves. As the countdown began, Marcus looked out at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, alien leaders were probably still convinced this was a bluff. A negotiating tactic that would end with humanity accepting slightly better terms than before. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The emergency klaxons aboard the Zithari Collective's flagship Luminous Dawn wailed as another bioship breached their defensive line. Admiral Kethvar's scaled hands trembled as she watched the tactical display light up with hostile contacts. The Void Devourers had chosen the worst possible moment to launch their largest offensive in decades. Status report, she barked, her usually melodic voice strained with desperation. 7 more planets under siege, Admiral, her tactical officer reported, his voice cracking. The bioships are adapting faster than our weapons can compensate. They're completely ignoring our plasma barriers and tearing through our hull armor like it's made of vapor. On the main screen, the nightmare unfolded in real time. Void Devourer vessels, each one a living organism the size of a small moon, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as they consumed everything in their path. Their organic hulls absorbed energy weapons and regenerated from physical damage with terrifying efficiency. Where are the human ships? Admiral Kethvar demanded. They should have been here hours ago. The communications officer's silence spoke volumes before he finally answered. Admiral, the humans completed their withdrawal from this sector 3 days ago. All human vessels have crossed beyond Council space boundaries. The bridge fell silent except for the steady pulse of proximity alarms. For 50 years, human warships had been the backbone of anti-devourer operations. Their adaptive tactics, innovative weapons, and seemingly suicidal courage had kept the bioships contained to the outer rim. Now, facing the largest devourer incursion in history, the Galactic Fleet was learning what it meant to fight without their human allies. Patch me through to the Hegemony command ship, Kethvar ordered. Chancellor Vorthak's reptilian features appeared on screen. His usually confident demeanor shattered. Behind him, his bridge was in chaos as officers struggled to coordinate a defense without human tactical support. Admiral Kethvar, Vorthak hissed, this is a disaster. The bioships are using completely new attack patterns. Our traditional defensive strategies are useless. Have you tried the human anti-devourer protocols? Kethvar asked, though she already knew the answer. We don't have them, Vorthak admitted, his voice heavy with bitter regret. The humans always handled devourer encounters directly. We never bothered to learn their methods. The tactical display updated again, showing 3 more worlds going dark as devourer bioships established orbital supremacy. Each lost world represented billions of lives and centuries of civilization. Admiral, her sensor officer called out, I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the frontier zone. Kethvar's heart skipped a beat. Could the humans have changed their minds? Were they returning to help despite the Council's treatment of them? Identify those ships immediately, she ordered. They're human vessels, Admiral. But they're not approaching our position. They're setting up a defensive perimeter around the frontier zone boundary. On the long-range sensors, Kethvar could see them. Hundreds of human warships arranged in perfect formation, their quantum signatures blazing like beacons in the darkness. But they weren't moving to engage the devourers. They were simply waiting. Open a channel to the human fleet, she commanded. The face that appeared on screen was unfamiliar to her. A human admiral she'd never met. His expression was professionally neutral, but she could see something harder underneath. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Frontier Fleet, he said calmly. How may I assist you, Admiral Kethvar? Admiral Chen, the Void Devourers have broken containment. We're facing the largest incursion in 50 years. We need immediate assistance. Chen's expression didn't change. That is indeed unfortunate. The Terran Federation will, of course, defend our frontier territories from any devourer incursion. Our defensive line is absolute. Kethvar felt a chill run down her spine. Admiral, billions of lives are at stake. Surely humanity won't simply stand by and watch civilized worlds burn. The Terran Federation deeply regrets the loss of life, Chen replied with mechanical politeness. However, we are no longer members of the Galactic Council. The defensive council space is the Council's responsibility. But you have the weapons. The tactics. You know how to fight these things. For the first time, Chen's mask slipped slightly. Yes, we do. We've been fighting them for 50 years while the Council debated and delayed. We offered to share our knowledge dozens of times. Every offer was rejected, classified as too dangerous or buried in committee review. The communication channel crackled with interference as another Devourer bioship unleashed an electromagnetic pulse. When the signal cleared, Chen continued speaking. 3 months ago, Admiral Kethvar, the human research station at Wolf 359, developed a quantum disruption weapon that could permanently disable Devourer bioships. The Council's Technology Review Board declared it too dangerous for general deployment. They demanded modifications that would have made it useless. Kethvar's blood turned to ice. That weapon, it could end this invasion. Yes, it could. In fact, our frontier defense fleet is equipped with the latest versions. We've also developed new shielding technology that makes our ships nearly immune to Devourer bioweapons. But that technology belongs to the Terran Federation now. On the tactical display, another world fell to the bioships. The Aquatic Alliance's beautiful reef cities were being consumed. Their crystalline structures dissolved by Devourer organic acids. Please, Kethvar whispered, abandoning all pretense of diplomatic dignity. Name your price, anything. Full council membership, permanent seats on all committees, exclusive trade rights, anything. Chen studied her for a long moment. Admiral, 3 days ago, Ambassador Sarah Chen made humanity's position clear to the Galactic Council. The offers you're making now are the same ones humanity has been requesting for 3 centuries. The only difference is that now you need us instead of taking us for granted. So you'll help us? The Terran Federation will consider requests for assistance from independent worlds and alliances, Chen said carefully. However, any such assistance would be provided under Terran terms using Terran methods with no Council oversight or interference. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Humanity was offering to help, but only if the Council surrendered all control over the operation. They would have to trust human judgment completely, accept human technology without restriction, and follow human tactics without question. How long do we have to decide? Kethvar asked. That depends entirely on how quickly the Devourers advance, Chen replied. However, I should mention that several independent worlds have already accepted our protection. The Altarian colonies voted to withdraw from the Council entirely this morning. They're being evacuated to Terran frontier territories as we speak. The communication ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate a defense they all knew was doomed to fail. Without human expertise, they were fighting blind against an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. Admiral, her communications officer called out, I'm receiving surrender requests from 17 different worlds. They want to know if humanity will accept them as refugees. Kethvar closed her eyes. In less than a week, humanity had gone from obedient servants to the galaxy's only hope for survival. The Council that had dismissed them as useful but insignificant was now begging for their protection. Send a message to all Council worlds, she ordered wearily. Inform them that the Galactic Council is prepared to discuss revised terms of partnership with the Terran Federation. As the message went out, she couldn't help but wonder if it was already too late. The humans had withdrawn their protection, and the galaxy was learning the true cost of taking their guardians for granted. The emergency klaxons aboard the Zithari Collective's flagship Luminous Dawn wailed as another bioship breached their defensive line. Admiral Kethvar's scaled hands trembled as she watched the tactical display light up with hostile contacts. The Void Devourers had chosen the worst possible moment to launch their largest offensive in decades. Status report, she barked, her usually melodic voice strained with desperation. 7 more planets under siege, Admiral, her tactical officer reported, his voice cracking. The bioships are adapting faster than our weapons can compensate. They're completely ignoring our plasma barriers and tearing through our hull armor like it's made of vapor. On the main screen, the nightmare unfolded in real time. Void Devourer vessels, each one a living organism the size of a small moon, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as they consumed everything in their path. Their organic hulls absorbed energy weapons and regenerated from physical damage with terrifying efficiency. Where are the human ships? Admiral Kethvar demanded. They should have been here hours ago. The communications officer's silence spoke volumes before he finally answered. Admiral, the humans completed their withdrawal from this sector 3 days ago. All human vessels have crossed beyond Council space boundaries. The bridge fell silent except for the steady pulse of proximity alarms. For 50 years, human warships had been the backbone of anti-devourer operations. Their adaptive tactics, innovative weapons, and seemingly suicidal courage had kept the bioships contained to the outer rim. Now, facing the largest devourer incursion in history, the Galactic Fleet was learning what it meant to fight without their human allies. "Patch me through to the Hegemony command ship," Kethvar ordered. Chancellor Vorthak's reptilian features appeared on screen. His usually confident demeanor shattered. Behind him, his bridge was in chaos as officers struggled to coordinate a defense without human tactical support. "Admiral Kethvar," Vorthak hissed, "this is a disaster. The bioships are using completely new attack patterns. Our traditional defensive strategies are useless. Have you tried the human anti-devourer protocols?" Kethvar asked, though she already knew the answer. "We don't have them," Vorthak admitted, his voice heavy with bitter regret. "The humans always handled devourer encounters directly. We never bothered to learn their methods." The tactical display updated again, showing 3 more worlds going dark as devourer bioships established orbital supremacy. Each lost world represented billions of lives and centuries of civilization. "Admiral," her sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the frontier zone." Kethvar's heart skipped a beat. Could the humans have changed their minds? Were they returning to help despite the Council's treatment of them? "Identify those ships immediately," she ordered. They're human vessels, Admiral. But they're not approaching our position. They're setting up a defensive perimeter around the frontier zone boundary. On the long-range sensors, Kethvar could see them. Hundreds of human warships arranged in perfect formation, their quantum signatures blazing like beacons in the darkness. But they weren't moving to engage the devourers. They were simply waiting. "Open a channel to the human fleet," she commanded. The face that appeared on screen was unfamiliar to her. A human admiral she'd never met. His expression was professionally neutral, but she could see something harder underneath. "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Frontier Fleet," he said calmly. "How may I assist you, Admiral Kethvar?" "Admiral Chen, the Void Devourers have broken containment. We're facing the largest incursion in 50 years. We need immediate assistance." Chen's expression didn't change. "That is indeed unfortunate. The Terran Federation will, of course, defend our frontier territories from any devourer incursion. Our defensive line is absolute." Kethvar felt a chill run down her spine. "Admiral, billions of lives are at stake. Surely humanity won't simply stand by and watch civilized worlds burn." "The Terran Federation deeply regrets the loss of life," Chen replied with mechanical politeness. "However, we are no longer members of the Galactic Council. The defense of Council space is the Council's responsibility. But you have the weapons, the tactics. You know how to fight these things." For the first time, Chen's mask slipped slightly. "Yes, we do. We've been fighting them for 50 years while the Council debated and delayed. We offered to share our knowledge dozens of times. Every offer was rejected, classified as too dangerous, or buried in committee review." The communication channel crackled with interference as another devourer bioship unleashed an electromagnetic pulse. When the signal cleared, Chen continued speaking. 3 months ago, Admiral Kethvar, the human research station at Wolf 359, developed a quantum disruption weapon that could permanently disable devourer bioships. The Council's Technology Review Board declared it too dangerous for general deployment. They demanded modifications that would have made it useless. Kethvar's blood turned to ice. That weapon, it could end this invasion. Yes, it could. In fact, our frontier defense fleet is equipped with the latest versions. We've also developed new shielding technology that makes our ships nearly immune to devourer bioweapons. But that technology belongs to the Terran Federation now. On the tactical display, another world fell to the bioships. The Aquatic Alliance's beautiful reef cities were being consumed. Their crystalline structures dissolved by devourer organic acids. "Please," Kethvar whispered, abandoning all pretense of diplomatic dignity. "Name your price, anything. Full council membership, permanent seats on all committees, exclusive trade rights, anything." Chen studied her for a long moment. Admiral, 3 days ago, Ambassador Sarah Chen made humanity's position clear to the Galactic Council. The offers you're making now are the same ones humanity has been requesting for 3 centuries. The only difference is that now you need us instead of taking us for granted. So you'll help us? The Terran Federation will consider requests for assistance from independent worlds and alliances, Chen said carefully. However, any such assistance would be provided under Terran terms using Terran methods with no Council oversight or interference. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Humanity was offering to help, but only if the Council surrendered all control over the operation. They would have to trust human judgment completely, accept human technology without restriction, and follow human tactics without question. How long do we have to decide? Kethvar asked. That depends entirely on how quickly the Devourers advance, Chen replied. However, I should mention that several independent worlds have already accepted our protection. The Altarian colonies voted to withdraw from the Council entirely this morning. They're being evacuated to Terran frontier territories as we speak. The communication ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate a defense they all knew was doomed to fail. Without human expertise, they were fighting blind against an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. Admiral, her communications officer called out, I'm receiving surrender requests from 17 different worlds. They want to know if humanity will accept them as refugees. Kethvar closed her eyes. In less than a week, humanity had gone from obedient servants to the galaxy's only hope for survival. The Council that had dismissed them as useful but insignificant was now begging for their protection. Send a message to all Council worlds, she ordered wearily. Inform them that the Galactic Council is prepared to discuss revised terms of partnership with the Terran Federation. As the message went out, she couldn't help but wonder if it was already too late. The humans had withdrawn their protection, and the galaxy was learning the true cost of taking their guardians for granted. Commander Jake Morrison felt the familiar thrill of anticipation as the UES Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Void Devourer swarm. Around him, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movement sharp and confident in a way that would have been impossible under the old Council restrictions. Target analysis complete, Commander, Lieutenant Singh reported from the tactical station. 17 bioships in the primary cluster, with what appears to be a Queen-class vessel at the center. Jake studied the tactical display with grim satisfaction. For 50 years, humanity had been forced to fight the Void Devourers with one hand tied behind their back, using only weapons and tactics approved by the Galactic Council's ethics committees. Those restrictions had cost countless human lives and allowed the bioships to evolve countermeasures to conventional weapons. Now, for the first time, humanity was free to use their full arsenal. Status on the quantum disruptor array? Jake asked. Fully charged and ready for deployment, Chief Engineer Torres replied from her station. Sir, I have to say it feels good to finally use this thing in actual combat. 3 years of testing and refinement, all for weapons the Council declared too dangerous. Jake couldn't argue with that sentiment. The quantum disruptor technology had been developed in secret at human research facilities beyond Council oversight. The weapons worked by creating localized reality distortions that prevented the complex quantum processes that kept Void Devourer bioships alive. In testing, they had proven completely effective against bioship regeneration capabilities. Beginning attack run, he announced. All ships weapons free. Let's show these things what human ingenuity looks like when we're not holding back. The Retribution led a formation of 12 human warships toward the Devourer swarm. Unlike the massive lumbering vessels preferred by other galactic species, human ships were built for speed and maneuverability. They darted through the void like hunting wolves, their sleek hulls bristling with weapons that the Council had never even known existed. The first quantum disruptor blast lit up the darkness like a miniature star. The target bioship, a massive creature that had been devouring asteroid debris to fuel its growth, simply stopped. Its bioluminescent patterns flickered and died as its quantum-based life processes collapsed. The regeneration that had made Void Devourers nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons failed completely. Direct hit on target Alpha, Singh reported with barely contained excitement. Bioship is showing no life signs. No regeneration detected. All ships continue attack pattern Delta, Jake commanded. Focus fire on the largest targets first. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, their enhanced AI systems sharing tactical data in real time. They anticipated each other's movements, created overlapping fields of fire, and exploited weaknesses in the devourer formations that other species had never even noticed. The bioships, accustomed to facing slow, predictable Council fleets, were completely overwhelmed. Their organic weapons, evolved to counter energy shields and conventional armor, proved useless against human adaptive defensive systems. Their regenerative abilities, their greatest advantage, meant nothing against weapons that disrupted their fundamental life processes. "Commander," the communications officer called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Chen. He's requesting a status update for the Council. Observers." Jake glanced at the secondary display showing the observation ship where representatives from a dozen alien species watched the battle unfold. They had demanded to witness human combat capabilities before agreeing to the new partnership terms. Now they were getting a demonstration that exceeded their wildest expectations. "Patch me through to Admiral Chen," Jake ordered. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, his expression carefully neutral despite the obvious satisfaction in his eyes. "Commander Morrison, report your status. 11 of 17 bioships neutralized, sir. 0 human casualties. Estimated time to complete elimination of the swarm, 14 minutes. The silence from the Council observation ship was deafening. Jake could only imagine the conversations taking place aboard that vessel as alien military leaders realized just how much humanity had been holding back during their centuries of service. "Commander," came a new voice on the communication channel. "This is General Thexka of the Coalition Forces. Those weapons, how long have you possessed this technology?" Jake looked to Admiral Chen, who nodded permission to answer. "The quantum disruptors have been operational for 3 years, General. The adaptive defense systems for 5 years. The tactical coordination AI for 7 years. 7 years? The four-armed general's voice cracked with disbelief. "You've had weapons capable of ending the devourer threat for 7 years. "Capable, yes. Permitted to use them, no," Admiral Chen interjected smoothly. "The Galactic Council's weapons review board classified all of these technologies as either too dangerous for deployment or requiring modifications that would have rendered them useless." On the tactical display, another bioship died as quantum disruptors tore apart its biological matrix. The remaining devourers were attempting to flee, but human ships were faster and more maneuverable. None would escape to threaten civilian populations. "The bioship formation is breaking apart," Singh reported. "They're attempting to scatter, but our pursuit squadrons are in position." Jake watched with professional satisfaction as the battle concluded with ruthless efficiency. The Queen-class bioship, a creature the size of a small moon that had terrorized the outer rim for decades, lasted less than 30 seconds under concentrated quantum disruptor fire. "All targets eliminated," he announced. "No survivors. No human casualties. Mission complete." The communication channel remained silent for a long moment before Chancellor Vorthak's voice came through, heavy with implications. "Admiral Chen, your performance has been educational. The Council would like to discuss immediate deployment of these weapons against the remaining devourer populations." "I'm sure they would," Admiral Chen replied dryly. "However, the Terran Federation will need certain assurances before we share our most advanced military technology. Name your terms." "Complete technological autonomy. No more weapons review boards. No more restrictions on human research and development. No more requirements to share our innovations with species that contribute nothing in return." Jake smiled grimly as he listened to the negotiations. For 3 centuries, humanity had been treated as a junior partner, despite their obvious capabilities. Council species had demanded access to human technology, while jealously guarding their own secrets. They had imposed restrictions and oversight that hobbled human military effectiveness while expecting humans to bear the primary burden of galactic defense. Those days were over. "Admiral," came another voice from the observation ship, this one belonging to Trade Minister Velox. "Surely the Terran Federation understands the importance of technological sharing for galactic security." "Minister," Admiral Chen replied with deadly calm, "the Terran Federation has shared technology freely for 300 years. Human medical advances have saved trillions of alien lives. Human engineering has built infrastructure on thousands of worlds. Human weapons have protected civilizations that never even acknowledged our contributions. The tactical display showed human ships forming up for departure, their mission complete. In less than an hour, they had eliminated a threat that had cost the Council fleet hundreds of ships and millions of lives over the past year. What we no longer understand, Chen continued, is why the galaxy expects humans to give everything while receiving nothing in return. The age of human charity is over. From now on, the Terran Federation operates as an equal partner, or we operate alone. Jake couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as he listened to the Admiral's words. For the first time in centuries, humanity was negotiating from a position of strength. The galaxy had learned what it meant to face the Void Devourers without human protection. They had seen what human military technology could accomplish when freed from Council restrictions. Commander Morrison, Admiral Chen concluded, returned to base. We have many more Devourer swarms to eliminate, and I suspect the Council will be much more cooperative with our next set of terms. As the human fleet entered hyperspace, Jake looked around at his crew's satisfied faces. They had just demonstrated that humanity was the galaxy's premier military power, not its willing servants. The balance of galactic politics had shifted permanently and everyone knew it. The age of human subservience was over. The age of human leadership had begun. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the assembled representatives in the newly constructed Terran diplomatic complex on New Geneva, watching as delegates from across the galaxy filed into seats arranged very differently from the old council chamber. Instead of the hierarchical arrangement that had relegated humanity to a minor position for 3 centuries, the circular configuration placed every species on equal footing. The past 6 months had changed everything. The Void Devourer threat had been eliminated entirely through the deployment of human quantum disruptor technology. But not before 17 member worlds had withdrawn from the Galactic Council to seek Terran protection. Now those worlds formed the core of a new alliance that was reshaping galactic politics. The Independent Alliance Council will come to order, Sarah announced, her voice carrying easily through the chamber without amplification. Today's session will address trade agreements, technology sharing protocols, and mutual defense treaties. She looked out over the assembled delegates and felt a profound satisfaction. Here sat representatives from species that had chosen partnership over exploitation. The Aquatic Alliance had been the first to abandon the old council after their rescue by human forces. The Alterian colonies had followed, along with the Peaceful Botanical Collective and 3 independent mining confederations. Before we begin formal proceedings, Sarah continued, I want to address the communication we received this morning from the Galactic Council. Chancellor Vorthak has requested permission to address this assembly. The chamber stirred with interest. The old Galactic Council had initially dismissed the formation of the Independent Alliance as a temporary arrangement that would collapse once the crisis passed. Now, with nearly half their former membership gone and their remaining territories still plagued by economic chaos, they were singing a different tune. The chair recognizes Ambassador Teth Mora of the Aquatic Alliance, Sarah announced. The aquatic leader's bioluminescence pulsed in patterns that indicated deep thought. Ambassador Chen, my people owe their survival to human intervention. We have no interest in returning to a system that treated us as expendable. I move to deny the Galactic Council's request for representation. Seconded, came the crystalline chime of Ambassador Velshan from the Alterian delegation. The old council had its chance to treat all species fairly. They chose exploitation over cooperation, Sarah nodded. The motion has been seconded. However, I think we should hear what they have to say, not because we owe them anything, but because it's important to understand how much the balance of power has shifted. The vote was unanimous. Chancellor Vorthak's holographic image materialized at the center of the chamber, his reptilian features showing an uncomfortable mixture of pride and desperation. Esteemed delegates, Vorthak began, his voice lacking the arrogance that had characterized his previous addresses. I come before you today to acknowledge past mistakes and propose a new framework for cooperation. Sarah leaned back in her chair, curious to see how far the Chancellor was willing to go. Around the chamber, other delegates watched with expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. The Galactic Council recognizes that our previous policies were inadequate, Vorthak continued carefully. We failed to properly appreciate the contributions of our member species, particularly humanity. We allowed bureaucratic inertia and traditional prejudices to prevent necessary reforms. How generous of you to admit that, muttered Ambassador Crix from the Mining Confederation, his words translated with sarcastic overtones. Vorthak's expression tightened, but he pressed on. The Council is prepared to offer unprecedented concessions to rebuild our partnership. Complete technological autonomy for all members. Equal representation on all governing bodies. Unrestricted colonization rights. Shared command authority over military operations. Sarah noticed several delegates exchanging glances. These were exactly the terms humanity had requested for centuries. The same concessions that had been dismissed as impossible or unnecessary. Chancellor, Sarah said calmly, those are very generous offers. 6 months ago, they might have been sufficient to prevent humanity's withdrawal from the Council. Today, however, the situation is rather different. She gestured to the delegates around the chamber. The species represented here have discovered that partnership between equals produces far better results than the hierarchical system the Council insisted on maintaining. We've eliminated the Void Devourer threat entirely. We've established trade relationships that benefit everyone involved. We've created a technological sharing program that accelerates innovation across all member species. The truth of her words was evident in the statistics displayed on the chamber's information screens. In 6 months, the Independent Alliance had achieved scientific breakthroughs that had eluded the old Council for decades. Freed from bureaucratic oversight and competitive secrecy, member species had collaborated on projects that advanced everyone's capabilities. Furthermore, Sarah continued, we've done all of this without the economic exploitation that characterized the old system. No species subsidizes others while receiving nothing in return. No species is expected to sacrifice their people for causes that bring them no benefit. Vorthak's composure slipped slightly. Ambassador Chen, surely you understand the importance of galactic unity. A divided galaxy is vulnerable to external threats. On the contrary, Chancellor, a galaxy built on voluntary cooperation is far stronger than one held together by economic dependence and military intimidation. Sarah activated a holographic display, showing the current political map of the galaxy. The Independent Alliance controlled nearly 40% of inhabited space, including the most technologically advanced worlds and the richest resource systems. The remnant Galactic Council controlled less territory and significantly fewer resources. The Alliance has received membership requests from 6 more systems this month, Sarah announced. The hegemony's tributary states are particularly interested in joining an organization that doesn't require them to surrender their autonomy. She could see the impact of her words on Vorthak's expression. The hegemony had been one of the Council's founding members, and the defection of their tributary states would leave them diplomatically isolated. What would it take for the Council to join the Independent Alliance as a member organization? Vorthak asked quietly. Sarah was ready for this question. She had been discussing it with Alliance leadership for weeks, knowing that eventually the old Council would realize their position was untenable. Complete dissolution of the current Council structure, she replied without hesitation. Individual member species would be eligible to apply for Alliance membership on the same terms as anyone else. No special status, no grandfathered privileges, no exceptions. The silence in the chamber was profound. Sarah was essentially demanding that the Galactic Council cease to exist, its member species starting over as equals in the new system. That's complete capitulation, Vorthak stammered. That's equality, Sarah corrected firmly. The same equality that humanity was denied for 3 centuries. Ambassador Tethmora's bioluminescence flared with approval. The ambassador speaks wisdom. The old ways failed. New ways must be built on foundations of respect and mutual benefit. Other delegates murmured agreement. These species had experienced what true partnership looked like, and none were interested in returning to the old system of exploitation and second-class treatment. Chancellor, Sarah said with finality, the Independent Alliance is not interested in rebuilding the old system with minor modifications. We've proven that a better way is possible. Individual worlds and species that want to join us as equals are welcome. Those who insist on maintaining systems of dominance and exploitation can find their own way forward. As Vorthak's image flickered and disappeared, Sarah looked around the chamber at the faces of her fellow delegates. 6 months ago, Most of them had been frustrated junior partners in a system that treated them as expendable resources. Now they were leaders of a new alliance that was reshaping galactic civilization. The galaxy had indeed trembled when humanity walked away, but from that trembling had emerged something stronger. A partnership built on mutual respect rather than exploitation, cooperation rather than domination, and at the center of it all stood humanity. No longer the galaxy's willing servants, but its natural leaders in the quest for a better future. 10 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, and Captain Elena Martinez stood on the observation deck of the UES Harmony, watching the construction of New Geneva Station's expansion rings. The massive space station had grown from a simple diplomatic complex into the beating heart of galactic civilization. Its gleaming spires home to over 2 million beings from 87 different species. Hard to believe it all started with us just wanting a fair seat at the table, her first officer, Commander Yuki Tanaka, said as she joined Elena at the viewport. Elena smiled, remembering the fear and uncertainty that had gripped the galaxy when Ambassador Sarah Chen delivered humanity's ultimatum. Fear has a way of clarifying priorities. The Council thought we were bluffing until the Void Devourer crisis made our absence impossible to ignore. Below them, mixed crews of humans and aliens worked together on the station's newest habitat ring, designed to accommodate the crystalline ethereals who had just joined the Independent Alliance. It was a sight that would have been impossible under the old system, where species segregation and technological hoarding were the norm. "Captain," came a voice from behind them. "Admiral Chen requests your presence in the conference room. The quarterly Alliance review is about to begin." Elena nodded to Lieutenant Singh. "We'll be right there." As they walked through the station's corridors, Elena marveled at how much had changed. The walls displayed art from dozens of worlds, scientific discoveries made possible by unprecedented cooperation, and testimonials from colonies that had thrived under Alliance protection. Children of multiple species played together in the recreational areas, growing up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal rather than exceptional. The conference room buzzed with activity as representatives from across the Alliance gathered for their regular review. Admiral Sarah Chen, now the Alliance's first elected Secretary General, sat at the head of a circular table that accommodated the varied physiological needs of their diverse membership. "The quarterly review will now commence," Admiral Chen announced. First item, membership applications. Ambassador Teth Mora activated a holographic display showing the current galactic political map. "We've received formal applications from 12 new systems this quarter, including the hegemony's former capital world." Elena wasn't surprised. The old Galactic Council had finally collapsed 18 months ago, when their last major members voted to dissolve the organization and apply for Alliance membership individually. The transition hadn't been without challenges, but the results spoke for themselves. "Economic report," Chen called. Trade Minister Velshan's crystalline form chimed melodically as she presented the data. "Alliance trade has increased by 400% over pre-collapse levels. Technological sharing protocols have accelerated innovation across all member species. Resource distribution is now based on need and contribution rather than political influence." The numbers were staggering. Without the artificial scarcities and competitive hoarding that had characterized the old system, prosperity had spread to previously neglected regions. Species that had struggled as second-class council members now thrived as equal Alliance partners. "Military status," Chen continued. General Morrison, Jake Morrison's father, and now head of Alliance Defense Command, stood to address the assembly. "The quantum defense grid is now fully operational across all member territories. No external threats have been detected since the elimination of the Void Devourer populations. More importantly, no internal conflicts have required military intervention." Elena remembered the Council's constant crises, border disputes, and resource wars that had kept human peacekeeping forces deployed across the galaxy for centuries. The Alliance's emphasis on voluntary cooperation and mutual benefit had eliminated most sources of conflict before they could escalate. "Scientific advancement report," Chen called. Dr. Vasquez, now the Alliance's chief medical officer, smiled as she presented her data. "Joint research projects have produced breakthrough treatments for 17 previously incurable diseases. The collaborative approach has accelerated our understanding of quantum biology, allowing us to develop new technologies that benefit all member species. Elena thought of the old system, where research was compartmentalized and breakthroughs were hoarded for competitive advantage. The Alliance's open sharing protocols had unleashed a renaissance of scientific discovery. "There is one matter we need to address," Admiral Chen said, her tone becoming more serious. "We've been contacted by the Outer Rim Exploration Initiative. They've discovered signs of a new sapient species approximately 200 light-years beyond our current borders." The room fell silent. First contact protocols had been completely revolutionized after humanity's withdrawal from the Council. Instead of the old system's aggressive expansion and forced integration, the Alliance had developed careful, respectful approaches to new civilizations. "What's our intelligence on their technological level?" asked Ambassador Crix from the Mining Confederation. "Preliminary scans suggest they're approaching interstellar capability," Dr. Vasquez reported. "Their society appears to be based on collective decision-making and resource sharing. Initial linguistic analysis suggests they have no concept equivalent to our old notions of technological ownership or competitive advantage." Elena exchanged glances with Commander Tanaka. It sounded like these new beings might be natural allies for the Alliance's cooperative philosophy. "I recommend we initiate first contact protocols," Admiral Chen said. "But we do this right. No demands, no territorial claims, no technology theft. We approach them as potential partners, not subjects to be integrated." The vote was unanimous, as most Alliance decisions were these days. When every member had genuine representation and every voice was heard, consensus came naturally. As the meeting concluded and delegates began filing out, Elena lingered to speak with Admiral Chen privately. "Sarah," she said, using the informality that the Alliance encouraged, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Council had accepted our original terms 3 centuries ago?" Sarah Chen looked out through the viewport at the bustling station, where beings from across the galaxy worked together in harmony. "Sometimes. But I think this path was necessary. The old Council was too invested in hierarchy and exploitation. Sometimes you have to tear down a broken system completely before you can build something better. And now we're the model that other civilizations look to." Elena mused. "Not we," Sarah corrected gently. "The Alliance. That's the beauty of what we've built. It's not about human leadership or human superiority. It's about partnership between equals, with humanity as one voice among many." Elena nodded, understanding the distinction. Humanity had catalyzed the change by walking away, but the Alliance's success came from every member species contributing their unique strengths and perspectives. "Captain Martinez," came an announcement over the station's communication system. "You're requested on Docking Bay 7. The exploration vessel Endeavour is preparing for departure to the new contact zone." Elena smiled. Even 10 years later, the galaxy still held mysteries to explore, civilizations to meet, and partnerships to build. But now they approached the unknown not as conquerors or exploiters, but as friends seeking friends. As she headed toward the docking bay, Elena reflected on the irony of it all. The galaxy had trembled when humanity walked away, fearing the collapse of civilization. Instead, that trembling had shaken loose the foundations of an unjust system, allowing something far better to grow in its place. The age of exploitation was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and at its heart stood the simple principle that had driven humanity from the beginning, that all sapient beings deserved dignity, respect, and the chance to reach their full potential. The galaxy no longer trembled with fear. It hummed with the harmony of species working together toward a better future for all.